Welcome everyone, this is Al Heck over at GameDevHQ.com. Thank you for stopping by and checking this out. This is a summary video of our pro workshop that we held back in the end of October toward November on how to design a PT hallway, or at least use the assets built inside a Filebase to make a similar scene as a PT hallway. Now, for those of you who don't know who we are GameDevHQ.com, and we are a website that's aimed at helping people become amazing game developers. We have training, we have courses, we have tutorials, we have challenges, we have a great Discord, and we offer a lot of different events and ways that you can participate in game development. And one of the cool things that we have is something called Filebase. It's a system, it's a tool that we created that makes game development and level design very simple and affordable. All you have to do is log on to GameDevHQ.com and then go to the Filebase tab. Then click on the Download Filebase button, and you should get an asset that's dropped into your Downloads folder called Unity 1.3 Unity Package. Go ahead and drop that into your project. Go to Window and click on Filebase. Now it's going to pull up a new drop-down window. Click the Update Now button. You should get this Failed to Load button. Just close this tab out and then open Filebase right back up. Now you just need to sign up for an account to get access to all of these assets that are currently available inside of Filebase. You can sort through all the assets to browse around, take a look at what we got. We also have the capability of searching for individual items inside of a drop-down or doing a keyword search term. So in this case, I would search gun, and everything that had the tag gun will show up. So it'll be sci-fi guns, turrets, World War II, bullets, things like that. If you like an asset or you want to check it out, just click on it. There is a quick thumbnail preview of every asset, and all you have to do to download is just click the download button. Once you're signed up as a pro member, you can download anything that you want. Once your asset is imported into your scene, then go ahead and click the locate button. This will tell you exactly where your asset resides inside of your Filebase structure. Then simply drop down, click in the FBX, and drop it into your scene. Filebase also has the ability to dock into Unity, so you don't have to keep opening up the windows. We also have completed environments as well. So if you want to start out from, let's say, a prison level, we show you what we've got, and you can just import that directly into your scene. Finally, we have some unique folder structures to view all assets inside of your current scene, and also some challenges that are available for you to test your ability as a C# programmer. So I'm going to give you a special discount today. If you sign up using the discount code PTHallway2019 for a yearly membership, then we will reduce the price of our yearly membership from $150 a year down to $100 a year. That is a 33% discount for watching this course. We won't hold this discount code for very long. It's probably going to go away after about 2 weeks on air once this hits YouTube. So it is a limited time offer. So sign up today to get a chance to get this special discount. Let's go ahead and start our tutorial. The first thing I want to do is download this Haunted House 02 kit. This Haunted House 02 is going to basically have everything we need to build our hallway, our windows, our whatnot. Once House 02 has been added, go ahead and click the House 02, go to the FBX files, and we have two different floors that we're going to choose from. I'm going to choose the floor 2x2. Then we're going to go to our top view, and we want to click on that little square to go isometric. And if you hold the control key, you will be able to snap to your grid. And what we want to do is literally just duplicate and snap out our hallway. Once we've completed that floor path that we're going to use, we want to go ahead and add our walls that contain the door openings and our doors. So go ahead and click down on the Haunted House doors, and we're going to choose door 1 since door 1 doesn't have any windows on it. So we'll just go ahead and drop that into scene. Then if we drop down interior wall, there is an interior wall with a door. We're going to go ahead and place that into our scene as well. With that said, let's go ahead and move our door and position it to where the hinges connect to the wall so that if we do decide to open the door, it'll open properly inside of our scene. Once that is completed, drop the door underneath the interior wall, and let's go ahead and create a new folder and make it a prefab folder. This is where we're going to keep our prefabs of particular assets that we make inside of here so that if we do need to update, it updates quickly. So go ahead and grab the interior wall door and drag it into your prefab folder. Now let's simply rotate the angle of this particular wall piece and we'll set it at the end of our corner wall. Now we're going to go ahead and grab the interior wall 2 meter and we're going to go ahead and drop that into our scene and set it on the corner of our wall itself. Now if you hold the control button, you can move your wall down via snapping, or if you hold the V as in Victor over the particular wall asset, you can actually snap using that particular wall asset. So I can find, let's say, the crown connection between one wall and the other and snap the two together. Because these are sized correctly, I'm going to go ahead and grab the corner wall and I'm going to position that right near where this corner element begins, just holding the V key, and the corner wall will actually snap into a really nice seam that matches the floor. Now we just need to go ahead and grab the additional walls. I'm going to push them a little closer since I know that this particular recess inside the PT hallway isn't as deep as the corner wall will go. So I'm just going to set this a little further up, and then I'm going to add in a matching corner piece to kind of finish in that recess. Once you've added that in, then just go ahead and add in another wall element, and we're going to add in another corner element to get to the end of this hallway. Now I'm going to go ahead and for the other side, I want to add in a wall element that has a window attached to it. So inside the haunted house window, there is a interior with a window as well. So we're going to go ahead and use that. So we're going to call this exterior wall with window. Go ahead and drag that into your scene. Now just we're going to place that where one of the walls are, and it's going to kind of give this hallway a little more life and dimension versus just flat walls everywhere. Once that's finished, we're just going to alternate. So we'll take a flat piece of wall and then we'll stick in another window and then another flat piece of wall so that this hallway has a little bit more variety. Next, we just need to assemble the rest of the hallway, and this is mostly just a rinse and repeat kind of thing. So this is going to be the doorway that's going to lead into the bathroom, and we also want to go ahead and add in more corner elements to fill out the rest of the room. More walls, more windows, more doorways, basically until the rest of this hallway is pretty much lined up. Once you have finished adding in all the walls and all the doorways, then we're going to go ahead and create an empty game object. And we're going to rename this walls. And we're just going to go ahead and drag in all of our walls into this one game object. That will help keep this entire area clean. We'll also create a floor game object, and we'll drop that into the floor folder. And we'll drop both of these under a static game object. This is really important because eventually we're going to turn all of these walls and floors static. So it's nice to keep the objects that are not going to move in this scene, no matter what, in one place so that when we do click the button that says, hey, change all of these, it's easy, it's organized, it's easy to find, it's easy to navigate. Now, we provided 2 different textures for our walls, and they are called House Interior Wall 2 and Interior Wall 1. And there's 2 different elements on our mesh render. So if one of your walls has kind of a floral pattern versus a static, like a stucco white pattern, you can simply adjust that by clicking on your interior wall and then finding the material that is associated with that interior wall, dropping it in to that FBX, and then just hit apply, and all those interior walls will then change. And then if you want to, you're going to have to create a duplicate FBX if you want your walls to be a certain color and not other walls being other colors. So you're going to do some playing around with. But yes, if you do run into an issue where a wall is not the correct style of wallpaper, just check inside the materials tab inside of the haunted house folder, and you'll just have to replace that texture with the other texture. So in our haunted house ceiling, let's go ahead and grab the ceiling 2x2, and we're just going to drop this into our center piece. We're just going to drop this into our scene. And then what we want to do is start duplicating this ceiling over and over again so that it kind of fills up the exact same layout as the floor. Let's also create a brand new skybox so that we can actually adjust the exposure. So how do you do this? You just hit the create button and you go ahead and create a new material. And inside this new material, we're going to change the shader from standard to skybox. And we want to set the skybox to procedural. There's 4 different options, but we want to use the procedural one. The exposure setting, I set mine down to about 0.1. You can also add a thicker atmospheric thickness so that it goes from like a bluish to more of a thicker reddish. Go ahead and drop that into your lighting tab under skybox material. Now, for temporary sake, let's make sure we set that lighting back to 1 because we still want to build the rest of this scene out. But when we do finish, we're going to drop that down to 0.1. So in order to make the lighting work, we need to add some lights. Now I added a bunch of new interior lights, but before that I only had this gas lamp. So I used this for this instance, but we have a brand new set of nice interior lights that you can use in Filebase as well. But once you import that, let's go ahead and drop that into our scene. And we're just going to set these up as the hallway lights that we see inside the PT demo. Then I'm just going to go to my top view and I am going to duplicate these over and over. Something that I ended up doing later, which you guys might want to do now, is set that gas lamp as a prefab because we're going to attach a light to it later. So to make it a prefab, make sure you grab the gas lamp, drop it in your prefab folder, and then you're also going to want to try to replace those other 2 gas lamps with prefabs as well. Once that is complete, go to Create, Light, and we're going to go ahead and add a point light. And we're going to make these a child of the gas lamp. So we'll do just one right now, and we'll set the point light by resetting the transform. And we're going to move the light out just a little bit because, yeah, it's more accurate when the light sits inside the gas lamp, but the light's purpose is to actually illuminate the hallway. So we may want to push the light out just a little bit in front of the gas lamp so it still highlights the lamp, but it also makes sure that our hallway gets enough illumination. To test the lighting, I'm going to go ahead and turn off our directional light, and I'm going to go to our skybox material. And I'm going to set that exposure down to 0.1. And now we can see how well the light illuminates our scene. Now for our light map settings, we have a couple options. We can go either progressive CPU, or if you have a good graphics card, you can go progressive GPU, and your light map baking will go a lot faster. But in order for light map to work, you need to set all the static elements to static. What this is going to do is make sure that the ability for this particular area to accept lights is going to turn off, but it's going to bake the lighting information into these elements. Once that's done, let's go to our gas lamp, and we're going to make sure all the other prefabs have lights as well. So if you go to your overrides tab and say apply to all, the other light prefabs will now apply that new point light to all the other ones. Now, some of you may be experiencing this problem where you have a wall and unfortunately it looks like there's black overlaying it and it's in a weird way. That's because a lot of these UVs are being mapped over each other. It's a way that we as artists can kind of cheat and apply more UVs onto the same texture. But when we do the light map baking, it is applying a shadow, let's say on the back side to the front side as well, since it's using the same type of UV map. But Unity has an ability to override that so that you can use overlapping UVs and still have good light map data. So to do this, all you need to do is click on your FBX object that you're having the problems with, and inside the inspector, click the Generate Light Map UVs. This is going to create a brand new UV set for your light mapping data. Then just hit apply and watch as all the problems disappear. And then you just need to find the other areas, the other FBXs that seem to be having the same problem. Click on those, generate UV light maps as well, and all should be fixed. We're also going to change the color temperature of each one of our lights to more of a yellowish so that it matches and it gives our scene a little more mood. Finally, with that step completed, let's go ahead and duplicate this gas lamp prefab and let's start setting them up throughout the hallway so that the entire hallway is illuminated. So at the time of recording, we didn't have flat walls and banister areas. We now do, but the original PT hallway actually has a second floor. So we didn't add that originally. So what we're going to do is add our second floor. We're going to go ahead and grab our ceiling elements in this particular area. We'll raise them up higher and we'll end up duplicating our wall elements and bringing them up to the second floor, and so that we can kind of create a really quick and dirty entryway foyer for our hallway. Once that's been added, we just need to slightly raise our second floor hallway so that it doesn't cut into any of our walls, and we should be pretty good. And then we'll just make sure that the ceilings match up and go from there. Now this section of the hallway actually has a hanging chandelier. We don't quite have the same chandelier, but we do have a variety of them that you can choose from. So we're going to go ahead and grab Chandelier 03 and we're going to drop that into our scene. And we're going to place that right at the top of this, raised foyer. And we're going to allow that chandelier to be the illumination inside of our hallway. Then we're going to go ahead and grab a point light and drop it underneath the chandelier as a child, and we're just going to adjust some of the color values, the range and intensity and shadow projection so that our chandelier looks good in our scene. So we have lots of assets that we can drop into our scene in Filebase, but you guys can fill it up as you please. We're going to add some things in here, like we want to add some dressers in there, because I know that there are quite a few dressers that hold pictures and other stuff that were essential in making that PT hallway scary in our scene. So I downloaded Old Dresser 02, import that into your project, and let's go ahead and place this into our scene. Now I'm specifically going to lock this dresser into this kind of recess right here that was in the PT hallway. I'm also going to choose this office plant and drop this into our scene as well. I'm going to go ahead and grab that same dresser and drop it into our scene and place it in the foyer area. It'll also be nice to add another plant. These walls are also fairly empty, so we're going to load these up with a variety of picture frames. But for this walkthrough, we're just going to use one, and we're going to duplicate it over and over and over again. But we're just going to resize and rescale it. So I feel like we're at the point where we should start testing this out. So let's go search for the FPS, or first person character controller. And let's go ahead and drop that into here and see if we can walk through our scene and get a good feel of if this is working for us or not. Now, if we go ahead and press play, though, our character is going to fall all the way through the floor into eternity. He'll fall through infinity, but that's because we didn't apply any type of collider to the floors. So I'm just going to select all the floors and add a mesh collider to them. Or, you could add a box collider to them as well. Now, if I go ahead and press play, our character is going to land on the floor. Oops, I just got to make sure I turn off the main camera in our scene so that our first-person controller camera takes over. And there we go. Now our first-person controller is in the scene. They can walk around and move throughout our entire level. Now, we don't want to walk into the walls because our walls don't have colliders either. So we will fall off the corner or the edge of our floors. So the next thing you're going to want to do is add the box colliders to the walls. So I'm going to select all of these interior walls real quick, go to add component, and add a mesh collider. So now if I press play and try to walk into those walls, I won't be able to go out of bounds. But I will be able to go out of bounds of the door. So let's go ahead and fix that by selecting the actual door itself. And we're going to add a mesh collider or a box collider. Now we have this great trash assets pack that you can use. And inside of here, it's got lots of amazing little things like papers and broken bottles and glass and stuff like that. And we can grab all these individual assets and drop them into our scene to kind of dirty things up. But it takes a little while, but doing this adds a lot to it. And why do we put all these assets this way? It's because right now every one of these FBXs is sharing the same texture map, their atlas together, so it doesn't require Unity to load a new material for every asset. It just makes sure that when you put that new FBX element into the scene, it's sharing the same material, which is a lot more optimized and better for game performance. Now, for the lights, we're going to use something called a cookie. Now, right now, the lights look like crap. They're projecting the same light texture over everything. If you search for Unity Cookie, you could find a couple interesting images. They're generally black and white, and you can apply those as your light source, I guess, a light mask for your point lights and your flashlight and everything else in your scene. So the first thing you want to do is download your cookie and then add it into your Unity project. Once you've added your image in, we need to change this a little bit so that we know it's a cookie. Set it to cookie. So since this is a point light, which is a 3D point light and not a projection, we need to set this from a 2D shape to a cube. And then we can take our light and we can drop it into the cookie section. Now, we forgot one tiny step in order to make sure that this cookie works. Because right now it is all white. We need to tell our alpha source that the input texture alpha is not going to be the alpha, but it's going to be from grayscale. Now, if we just adjust the intensity, you'll notice how the light looks completely different now. It's kind of scattered, and it creates this fake shadow in the light that wasn't there before. It's not just this big even light blast, but it comes from a variety of different sources. And what's even neater is that since it's a 3D light, you can actually adjust the light angle to kind of better match your light source. So I can have the shadow part on one end and then bounce out the light on the other, and it creates that kind of a fake lighting source into our scene that wasn't there before. Now with that lighting change, you could see how much it drastically improves the lighting overall in our scene. Let's go ahead and add some ambiance to our scene. So we're going to create an empty game object, and then we're going to rename this to audio. We're going to reset our transform on it, and let's go ahead and we're going to add in rain into our scene. So create an empty game object and call this rain. Then drop that under audio. So for this instance, I'm going to add into my scene rain exterior 01. It's just a looping rain sound. And I'm going to go ahead and drop that onto rain BG. Now we create a new audio manager by clicking audio mixer. And this is going to create an audio mixer. And in here, we're going to attach a brand new group for our rain background. So in here, click the plus, and we are going to use rain BG. And then inside of our audio asset, our game object called rain BG that has the exterior rain 01 audio sound effect dropped into it, we want to set it to loop, have it play on awake, and we want to make sure that our output or our audio mixer group is set to rain BG. Then while you're in play mode, if you click the edit in play mode, you can actually adjust your volume level of your rain in play mode without actually having to stop and start over and over again, which makes it really convenient. Now I want to create rain by the windows. So I'm going to create an empty game object and place it next to the window. And I'll call it rain. And this is going to be a 3D object that is going to have a 3D sound effect to it. So once we've placed this under rain window, let's go ahead and grab our audio. And our audio for this is going to be rain interior 01. So the sound effect is actually a little different than the exterior, which will make it easy for the user to identify. So once you got that, drop the rain interior onto the rain windows game object. Set it to loop, and then also make sure you change the spatial blend from 2D to 3D. So as you get closer to it, the sound of the rain gets louder. Now, let's go ahead and add in our zombie into the scene. So I'm just going to search for Man 01, and our Man 01 has a zombie texture that we've built for him as well. So let's go ahead and import that into our game. Now we're just going to go ahead and he's got a prefab with LODs and all this other good stuff attached. So we're going to drop him into scene. And we're just going to place him at the front of this hallway. Now, when we design this part of the scare, you almost have to work backwards. You can't design the jump scare lighting-wise initially. You have to design the final look of your hallway. So for this instance, we know that the lights are going to turn off at the end. And we want to make sure that the lights are going to turn off and they're going to look good when they're turned off. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab a spotlight. And we want to set this to real time because we don't want this spotlight to actually bake in the scene. We don't want it to affect the lighting around it. And we're going to use this spotlight to light our enemy, this zombie character, just briefly. And then using something like Cinemachine, we're going to turn off everything instantaneously. So we're going to have this spotlight behind. We're going to use some soft shadows. So we cast that long shadow from behind this zombie character. With our character set in scene, we're going to now make sure that he's set to idle. And we're going to write a quick script. And this script is going to help us with Cinemachine. And it's a really simple, basic script. Basically, we're going to have a turn on trigger, which is a game object. And that's really all that we really need. So if we start, we want to make sure we turn everything that is on this script to off. And then if we walk into it and we are the player and turn on first is set to false, then we want to turn on and set active this trigger to true. That's all this script does. Next thing you're going to do is import Cinemachine into your project. Next thing we're going to do is we want to create a folder, and we're going to call this Timelines. And these are going to be specific timeline events that occur when we step on triggers. And that's just basically how it's going to work. So we want to create a trigger. So let's go ahead and create a 3D object. Just a cube. We'll place this under an empty game object called triggers. And we'll name it something so that it's like 01 knock. So we know what this particular trigger will cause. Then we're going to go ahead and place our cube into our scene where we want our player to walk across to be the trigger. Next, we turn off the mesh renderer, but we want to keep the box collider on. If you can't see the box collider, make sure that you turn gizmos back on. Next, we want to make sure that we have our GDHQ first-person controller set to the tag of player. Then we're going to grab or create an empty game object, and we're going to call this is going to be our knock. So let's go ahead and call this random knock. And we're going to grab sound effects. So inside Filebase, we have a Foley section, and we're going to grab the knock wooden door 01. Once we have the knock wooden door 01, we'll set this onto our random knock, but we don't want it to loop. We just want it to play in place. Then we're going to go ahead and grab that trigger script, and I'm going to drop this script onto the random knock. So when we step onto the trigger, it's going to turn the random knock on. Next, we're going to do the same exact thing. We'll just duplicate our knock, rename it LFE, and we'll move that trigger up a little further into our scene. And what an LFE is that low rumble that you hear like in movies like I forget what the name is of that movie where it's like a haunting or something like that. So we'll create the audio game object called LFE. We'll change the audio source and we'll put LFE inside of it. It's going to play on awake, and we want this LFE to loop because it's just going to keep rumbling the entire time. Once that's done, in the LFE area, instead of turning on the random knock, we want to turn on the LFE. So when we press play, it's going to turn off the random knock and the LFE because that's what the script says it's going to do. And then when we walk into their triggers, it's going to turn them and set them active. Next, we're going to create a new game object, and we are going to call this turn off zombie. And we're going to drop this into timelines. And this is going to be our Cinemachine timeline right here. And it's going to play an event. So go ahead and select your turn off zombie, go to your timeline window and hit create. And you're going to save that new director. Then place that timeline into the timelines folder in your project settings. So everything that happens inside this timeline will now be connected to this particular director. So let's grab our activation LFE and drop it in, and we'll call this an activation track. So what will end up happening is when the LFE is active at frame 0, it will stay on, but when it hits frame like 2 or 3, the LFE audio is going to turn off. Then we want to go ahead and add this dark slam sound effect. I actually found this online, so I didn't post this in the Filebase, but you guys can find other sound effects that really help out sell your horror thing. So just go ahead and drop this track into your timeline, and we'll place this right there. That's perfect. Now, if it's not working for you, you got to make sure that the assets that are supposed to turn on and off are connected. So in the audio, you want to grab the LFE object, and you want to grab the zombie game object, and you could do a playback and you could see how it works, where the activation track kicks in. You'll hear the LFE turn on, our zombie will be there, and then it will turn off. Next, we can also add in our metal door handle and our door squeak sound effect to have the bathroom door open. And we're going to use the same exact technique. We're going to use triggers to set active a timeline, and that timeline is going to play an animation. So go ahead and create another timeline called Open Bathroom Door. Create a timeline for it, and then we're just going to drop in the audio tracks that would play during that timeline. But we also want to set an animation track for our door. So when we do lock into here, the door starts creaking open. So in our bathroom door, we're going to drag our door into our scene, and we're going to set it to an animation track. Then what we can do is hit the record button, and we can actually record the animation of the door opening and closing. Also add a spotlight behind the door that shows where our flashlight is actually showing. And we're just going to set that right behind the bathroom door, and we'll set it to real time. That way it doesn't affect our light mapping. And we're going to set our indirect multiplier lower so that it doesn't splash light onto everything. Finally, to actually get the light to show correctly on the hallway, well, we simply need to add shadows. Let's go ahead and take that trigger and place it into the back of our scene, and now we should have a partially complete hallway for the PT simulation. So we walk down, we have our knock, we have our LFE that's going to occur, we have our zombie, and then when we walk up a little closer, it disappears. And then if we walk to the end of the hallway, we should have the trigger occur and the door opens. And there you go, guys. That's how we set up our PT hallway. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you do get a chance, you should attend one of our live pro workshops. It'll give us a lot more time to go in depth. Again, this was just a quick summary of what we went over. Also, this discount code is going to be applicable for only about 2 weeks. So if you're interested in this and you want to start designing stuff and you want a huge asset library to be at your beck and call, sign up for our yearly membership. This is a 33% discount, and use the discount code when you log in. Again, this is Al over at GameDevHQ. We got more stuff coming over your way. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys later.